Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen on the East Coast, West Coast. It's still early in the morning, and already on day one, Justin Verlander makes the big announcement. 2 years, $86 million to sign with, not the LA Dodgers, the New York Mets. The New York Mets quickly bounced back after losing Jacob deGrom at the end of last week to the Texas Rangers to the tune of 5 years, $185 million. They get Justin Verlander, 2 years, $86 million, a lot more comfortable terms for what they were looking for. Great deal for the Mets. As far as what this means for them, fills immediately that hole left by Justin Verlander. They still, of course, have 2 holes left in that rotation. They're expected to still be in the starting pitcher market. We'll see which options they end up going for. Do they go a little bit cheaper with another option, bringing back Chris Bassett or a Taijuan Walker, or do they go to the top of the market for Carlos Rodon? Rumors right now are that Carlos Rodon is the top pitcher on the market right now. The New York Yankees are the biggest name after him, the most heavily invested of the large market clubs. The Texas Rangers are still there. The Giants, of course, have interest in bringing him back. There's a lot of teams that have been trying to bring in top-level starting pitching. The Minnesota Twins, there was some news that just came out of them, is that they're actually looking to deal Luis Arraez, their all-star second baseman anyway, pretty much a multi-utility player, but beat out Aaron Judge for the batting title last year for batting average anyway. Surprising to see the Twins give up a piece like that, and the reason being is that they want an all-star, high-end, frontline, ace-level starting pitcher in that rotation. That's the only chance they would deal away Luis Arraez. That's the caveat that was put out in the tweet from Dan Hayes from MLB.com. So kind of take that news with a grain of salt anyway. But a lot of news happening already. It's 11:51 here Central Time, and already at the winter meetings. Not even 10 o'clock there on the West Coast, and we already have a big signing and some big trade rumors already beginning. Winter meetings are going to move fast and furious this year. We told you guys that this is the first real winter meetings we've had since 2019. And we've had COVID to deal with, a lockout to deal with in between, and we also have the World Baseball Classic kind of condensing everything this offseason. So things should move very quickly here at the winter meetings. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that like button. Really would appreciate all the support. So thank you guys for joining us. As far as what Justin Verlander signing with the Mets means, let's start with Justin Verlander himself. Played last year with the Houston Astros, won the Cy Young there. Pretty much didn't quite win it unanimously anyway. Shohei Ohtani did get a couple of votes, but he did pitch 175 innings, pitched to a 1.75 ERA, I believe. He was absolutely dynamic anyway for the Astros, was great all year long, even overcame his issues that he had in the postseason in the World Series. Now, the one thing for him, as opposed to a Jacob deGrom or a Carlos Rodon, he is significantly older than either of those two players. Verlander is 39 years old. This contract will take him through his age age 41 season. If he stays healthy, which is again a big if because he is coming off of a Tommy John, even though he had one great year since then, that's only his 1 year removed from that entire recovery and surgery. A lot of risk here, just like there was for Jacob deGrom, but we saw the effectiveness Verlander had over a greater number of innings last year. That's why we see the numbers over $40 million annually for Justin Verlander. This deal gives him roughly about $43 million annually. We'll see what the final terms end up being, but it sounds like a very lucrative deal for Justin Verlander. All offseason long, we heard how he wanted to top the Max Scherzer level deal, didn't understand why the Houston Astros weren't willing to go that level. We saw kind of some acrimony going back and forth between Justin Verlander's camp and Jim Crane, the owner of the Houston Astros, basically saying, nah, you're worth $25 to $35 million. Obviously, the market says significantly different than Jim Crane. It seems like they're more comfortable going with their younger rotation anyway. They don't like giving out long-term deals. I thought there might be an outside chance because it's a short-term deal that maybe they could convince themselves if they have an injury this offseason or if they really just want to make sure they have a great solid starting rotation, that maybe we could see Justin Verlander back with the Houston Astros. But there really was no path back. Probably about a week after the World Series, we saw way too many headlines coming out about how Jim Crane really didn't want to spend that level of money on Justin Verlander. Jim Crane going to the media himself and saying, nah, he's not worth $40+ million a year like a Max Scherzer. We're not going to go to that level. And once you see the owner going to the media, it's not like a GM just posturing in the public saying, yeah, we'd really like to have him back, depends on his number. No, that's the owner saying it's not happening. And so you could kind of see how the market moved away from Houston. The Dodgers were long considered the favorite for him. Everybody kind of saw them as the best fit. They trimmed over $100 million in payroll from just their salary last year. And so they had some openings anyway. Of course, that starting rotation isn't nearly as good as it has been in the past. They still have some great options, don't get me wrong. They've just finished the signing of Clayton Kershaw today, 1 year, $20 million with incentives as well. Walker Buehler's coming back from injury. Julio Urias is still there. They still have Dustin May. They lose Tyler Anderson. They lost Max Scherzer last year. Trevor Bauer never really played in that rotation due to suspension issues. So they have a lot of turnover that they're dealing with, and bringing in a guy like Justin Verlander would have been a perfect stopgap option for at least a couple of years if they had signed him to a 2-year. But no, it's the Mets. They get the job done. Congratulations, Billy Epler. I know there was a lot of pressure on you from the outside media, from outside fans, etc., but you get the job done. Congratulations. You don't have to go to that $45 million. You don't have to go to that 3-year total guarantee, etc. So good job, Billy Epler, sticking to your guns. And just a few days after losing Jacob deGrom for sticking to their guns to the 3-year, $120 million offer that they were sticking with, they actually get their man in Justin Verlander here. Congratulations to the New York Mets fan base. But welcome in, Jose, Derby, and Chicago. Welcome back. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Day one begins with a bang. 2 years, $86 million. Yes. Deal could possibly be for 3 years. Yes. I just want Sean Murphy to the Guardians, maybe legit first base and shortstop too. But hey, I know Cleveland. Well, you already have a good shortstop. I don't know about how great he is. But Ahmed Rosario was a fantastic player for the Guardians last year. I mean, you did have, basically got two really good players for one with the Francisco Lindor trade, so I don't know how greedy you can get at that shortstop spot, considering how your payroll usually is year to year. As far as adding Sean Murphy, I think Guardians would be a great fit for him, and adding a guy like Josh Bell at first base, another good option as well. Chicago Bears, who had a better offense last year, the Mets or the Astros, might make a difference. Well, I think both had issues offensively. Astros offense kind of faltered down the stretch. That's why they kind of were in a lot of tight games, etc. Gave up some games when they still had good starting pitching. Mets also faltered down the stretch, even though they were basically world beaters for the first 5 months of the season. September they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and then we saw their issues in the playoffs. And we'll see how things go with Verlander going to the Mets, but they still need to add some pieces there. They still need to add a couple more rotation pieces. They need to bring back Nimmo, and yet they still need to add some more bats to that lineup. That was the issue last year, and they just need to get back to that point. And we haven't even touched on the bullpen. They had 6 relievers go to free agency this offseason. They only signed back 1 so far in Edwin Diaz, so we'll see how things go. But welcome back, Ramon. How many starting pitchers more do you see with the Mets signing? I see at least 2. They need 2 more. I think Peterson is going to be more of your, fill in whenever one of them does inevitably get injured or due to poor performance, etc. But something to kind of keep your eye on is maybe a Chris Bassett going there. I'm not sure if they'll play at the market level of a Carlos Rodon, but it seems like Carlos Rodon is seeking a 6-year deal, probably in excess of $30 million. I think the Rangers could still be in that market. The Yankees seem to be in there, the Giants. So there's going to be a plethora of teams out there. I think the Twins are in that market as well, but I wonder if they're going to hold off on bringing him in to go after or to bring in their own guy, Carlos Correa. I wonder if they're making Luis Arraez available so they can get a starter on a cheaper contract than giving out $30+ million to a guy like Rodon. Maybe that's the route they ultimately end up going, but there's a lot of interest right now in Carlos Rodon. Aaron Judge is not signed yet, but the winter meetings have gotten off to a blistering start. We're still not even noon here in the Central Time Zone. The East Coast, or excuse me, the West Coast is where the winter meetings are taking place in San Diego. It's not even 10 o'clock, and we've already had the second biggest free agent starting pitcher come off the board. The third is going to be Carlos Rodon. We'll likely see that contract, I'd imagine, probably within the next day, maybe two at most. I think Carlos Rodon's market is going to move very quickly now that Verlander's contract has been announced. I'm expecting probably in the deal a range of around probably 6 years. We'll call it $31.5 million annually for Carlos Rodon at this point. Coming into this offseason, I would expecting probably a 5-year, $100 million deal based off of his performance with the Chicago White Sox. Then this year, continue to add to that, and we see the market trying to get up to probably about the $28 million range. Now with these contracts being signed, money going a little bit faster than what other clubs may have liked, the market for starting pitching is certainly high right now, and we're going to see some really big numbers for Carlos Rodon, so don't be surprised. But thank you for joining us, Ramon. What do you think the next domino will be to fall? I think it's probably going to be one of Judge, Haniger, or Rodon. I think one of those three could move very quickly. Now that we've gotten the Verlander market done, the Dodgers could move quickly on one of the shortstops. But I'm curious to see what the Dodgers do with that starting staff. Do they pivot to a guy like Rodon? Do they pivot to Bassett? There has been some interest in Bassett going to the Padres. The Red Sox have been listed as a suitor, the Phillies as well. But we're still waiting for the first shortstop to come off the board. But the starting pitcher market is certainly hot right now. But if I had to pick, I'd probably say Carlos Rodon could be the next, high-level free agent outside of Aaron Judge that signs. Aaron Judge, I mean, his market right now seems to be pretty consistent at 9 years, $300+ million. I wonder what exactly the AAV would be. We heard some rumors about a week ago that the AAV would be around $37 million. I think we're well past that at this point. I think we're probably going to reach $40 million annually. 9 times 40 is going to be $360 million total. And maybe the Giants go one extra year to get that contract signed, so we could see a $400 million contract for Aaron Judge. But Carlos Rodon, I expect to be the next domino outside of Aaron Judge. Yes, Charles, we finally reached 1,000 subscribers, so thank you guys for hitting that subscribe button. Welcome in, Coral. Appreciate it. Presser is certainly on the Dodgers right now. I feel like they might not be the top dog in the NL as it has been the past few years. Well, that's kind of been brewing over the past couple of years. We've seen the departures over the past couple of years for the LA Dodgers. They're very top-heavy as far as an organization. Sure, they have some great free agents. They're going to lose Trey Turner, but I expect them to still be able to bring in a shortstop this offseason. I mean, they saved a ton of money based off the last season's payroll. Even bringing in a guy like Correa or a Bogarts to play shortstop and piecemealing that rotation together, maybe with a one-year deal type of contract for a player that's trying to do what Carlos Rodon did last year and build his value a little bit more before he hits free agency, maybe the Dodgers could go that route. But I'm wondering if they're going to save some of their powder for the Shohei Ohtani talks next year. That seems to be a lot of the scuttlebutt going on around the LA Dodgers. Verlander is very high risk at his age, gasses out towards the end of the season, and has had more accruing injuries. Lately has missed a couple of starts last year. Yes, he did miss some time in September as well. Every starting pitcher, once you get over 30, is going to have some warts. I mean, these are still top-end elite starting pitchers. DeGrom graded out as the best starting pitcher on the market when healthy. But again, the big caveat is when healthy. Verlander is right up there as well, when healthy. Obviously, pitched a great number of more innings anyway over the last year anyway than DeGrom, but both had their injury issues coming into this offseason. Seems like the Mets were comfortable going to a 3-year commitment with DeGrom, only 2 years with Verlander, with the option, of course, so we'll see what the ultimate numbers end up being, but a great deal there. You saw ESPN put out a possibility that they could trade for Burns and Adames. Thoughts? Well, we mentioned probably about a week ago now that Willy Adames, that the Dodgers had checked in on Willy Adames about his availability. Now that the top couple of starters are off the market and don't think they're in the market really for Carlos Rodon, maybe they try to get a package type deal for Burns and Adames. But the Brewers have already said they're not going to trade either one of them after the Colton Wong deal. They save the money that they need to. But everybody knows in the industry that they have three of the top free agents on the board for 2024. They're not going to be able to re-sign all of them. I'm expecting them to at least trade one of those pieces if they can't negotiate a long-term deal. And I imagine they're going to try to keep the starters. No, 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 not yet. I'm still in the review process for YouTube anyway. Still in the review process. They say it's going to take about a week for the review process to end for YouTube, so hopefully we'll get through that and be able to make this a full-time commitment. That's what I would really like to see happen. Also, you think Judge signs in San Francisco, where we're seeing a lot of free agents choose different clubs this year. So maybe the trend will continue with Aaron Judge leaving to go to the Giants. I brought this up in previous videos anyway, but it reminds me a lot of the Barry Bonds free agency back when he was with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I think it was 1993 was his free agency, somewhere around there. Back then, George Steinbrenner was still around running the New York Yankees, and they were beaten out by the San Francisco Giants. When the San Francisco Giants set their mind to a player, they usually get him. Same thing with the Yankees. So two powerhouse clubs going after the same player should be very interesting. That's winter meetings anyway. Barry Bonds ended up going to the San Francisco Giants. Maybe history will repeat itself with the Judge signing anyway, but we'll see how things go. Rodon to the Orioles. I don't think that's a prayer of happening. Will there be a third starter for the Mets? Yes, there will. I would expect probably a type like Chris Bassett, something like that. Just kind of depends on how stiff the competition is between the Phillies and Padres for him. You think the Astros are going to make another splash? Well, if you're talking about a splash being Michael Brantley or Andrew Benintendi, sure. But to me, a splash is more of the big name type, like going out there and getting a type like a Carlos Rodon or a Justin Verlander or an Aaron Judge. I don't think the Astros are going to be in that class this free agency period. I think they're going to be bypassed by the Rangers at some point in the next 2 or 3 years if they keep losing pieces out of their organization. We've seen them lose Carlos Correa. We've seen them lose George Springer, Garrett Cole, and now Justin Verlander. How many more losses are the Astros going to be able to sustain and keep it as a championship-level club? They've been able to weather the storm so far, but they're relying solely on their young starting pitching right now. If they can prove all the doubters wrong, if they can hold it down for 162 games without having that veteran at the head of the rotation take all the pressure off of them, then more power to them. But I think they're going to have some growing pains as they try to adjust to life without Cole or Verlander on that roster. Thank you, Coral. Appreciate it. I do like seeing different movement around the league as well. I like seeing how teams are not just sticking to their guns and saying, well, the other team had him before, so they got an ultimate leg up, so we're not really going to try for this free agent. No, get in there and try to make the deal with that free agent. Get the deal done. If you think you would be a much better club with bringing in a guy like Carlos Rodon or Aaron Judge, go out there and negotiate with him. Don't just assume he's going back to where he came from. I mean, if you want, like for instance, Aaron Judge's market, everybody thinks the Yankees absolutely have to get him. I think they absolutely have to retain him as well, but if I'm the Giants, I'm not shying away from Aaron Judge because the Yankees are absolutely desperate to keep Aaron Judge. I'm the San Francisco Giants. I want Aaron Judge because I need him to improve my club. I have no qualms about what the Yankees are doing. I'm not worried about them one iota. How about a Reynolds requesting a trade? That one surprised me. I'm not too surprised, though, because it's been a very poor time for him in Pittsburgh. I think he should be traded this offseason. I think he now will be traded because he requested the trade. I don't think he would have been if he hadn't requested a trade. And at the same time, with a lot of young talent getting ready to come to the major leagues for Pittsburgh, they can't exactly have a disgruntled center fielder out there in Brian Reynolds. So bringing in a veteran like Carlos Santana up front at first base kind of helps mentor all those young guys. Maybe even bringing in a veteran that's had experience playing in Pittsburgh, winning an MVP there in Andrew McCutchen would be another addition to help with that organization through their growing pains as they try to get a little younger as well. But they're about ready to have their next contending window. They're going to probably be able to compete with the likes of the Milwaukee Brewers in that division as soon as not 2023, but 2024 is when you could see some real improvement for the Pirates. What do you think about the Arise trade? Well, I'm wondering what the Twins are ultimately hoping to get out of it. For instance, say they're going to trade him to the Milwaukee Brewers for the likes of Corbin Burns. Arise is a great hitter, but what exactly are you going to give to Milwaukee to, give them a starter to fill in for Corbin Burns? I understand you have a couple of prospects that you like and that kind of a thing, but moving Arise, while it solves their lineup problems anyway, fills in for Colton Wong, etc., in that lineup, but I just don't see it really happening. It just doesn't fit. Where else could they get a starter? Maybe the likes of a Pablo Lopez. That'd be a great bat for the Marlins. Marlins do need a bat there. I just wonder again about the fit. Is Pablo Lopez really the pitcher you're wanting in a Luis Arraez trade? I wonder if Luis Arraez has a little bit more value than Pablo Lopez at this point. Phillies need to answer back quickly after this Verlander to Mets signing. I don't know about quickly, but I think they need to answer decisively. They, of course, need to add a shortstop, I believe, first and foremost. That was basically a black eye last year for the organization. Didi Gregorius was cut in the middle of the year. They tried a couple of different guys, Bryson Stott and Edmundo Sosa. None of those pieces played half as good as Trey Turner last year. Bringing him in solves a whole bunch of issues for them, solves their shortstop spot, adds them some speed in that organization as well. And they still are going to need to add a number 3 starter in that line or in that rotation if they're able to steal a guy away like a Chris Bassett. In addition to bringing in Trey Turner, the Phillies should be able to say they're at least on the same level with the Mets, no matter what else the Mets decide to do this offseason. But to answer your question, Alex, who will be the next domino to fall? I'm expecting it to be either Rodon or Judge. But appreciate you guys joining us. Got 30 of you guys with us right now. Don't be afraid. Say hello. Hit that like button. Really would appreciate it if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button. It does help us out quite a bit. If you're new to us here at the Upside, hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate that as well. We cover the NBA, MLB, the NFL, and the NHL, so don't be a stranger. He has been talking multiple times to San Diego, but that's old news. He talked to that news came out before the winter meetings began. That news came out actually before the Jacob deGrom signing. I just wonder if this is more about Turner trying to drive up the price for himself in that market. Also, the Phillies are said to be talking to the other shortstops on the market, the Bogartses, the Correas, the Swansons. I think it's basically just negotiating through the media by both sides. We'll see where he ultimately ends up. Maybe there's a surprise out there and San Diego says, hey, we really want you. We'll give you $35 million over 10 years, $35 million annually over a 10-year contract. That's something that could get the eye of a player like Trey Turner, but he wants to go back to the East Coast. That's where he prefers to play. It's said that he wants to play his spring training ball down in Florida. Padres do not have that claim, so we'll see how things go. But let me update you guys on kind of the latest news. As I was mentioning, Carlos Rodon is indeed seeking a 6-year contract. We'll see where his market ultimately ends up. The Rangers and the Yankees are the hardest teams in on his market right now, with the Giants and Twins also in there. A couple other teams lurking in the rearview mirror as well. But he should be able to get a healthy contract, probably in the 6-year range, maybe an option for a 7th year. We're seeing a lot of these options on these contracts this year. Tiger's going to do anything? I think they're going to try to add around the edges of that team anyway. I don't expect them to make a move today. I think they're going to wait for these big guys to settle and see what the market ultimately looks like for that 2nd and 3rd tier free agent, whether it be starter or an outfielder, anything like that. But I think they're waiting for their opportunity. Astros pitching will be just as good without Verlander. He was the Astros' worst pitcher in the playoffs. Plus, they got a kid, Brown, who looks like the star in the making. Again, more young guys. They've always had the pressure taken off of them because of Cole and Verlander. Now they're going to have the likes of Valdez, McCullers. McCullers probably the veteran, I guess, on this unit at this point in time. Christian Javier, etc. They've basically been playing free and easy baseball anyway with the Houston Astros. Now they're going to have to answer a lot of those questions Verlander and Cole would be able to answer as far as with legitimacy at the head of that rotation. Christian Javier, of course, had the no-hitter or combined no-hitter in the World Series, or in the playoffs anyway. He was fantastic, and we'll see if he's able to do it over 162 games. Not saying they can't, but they've never had pressure like they're going to have next year on that starting staff. And seeing how they respond will go a long way to determining whether the Astros continue to stay on top, not just this year, but for the foreseeable future. Let me see if I can pull up that information for you guys. Third-year option of $35 million. That's the full no trade as well going to Verlander. Those are the contract details for Justin Verlander. It's a player option that vests. Interesting. If he gets 140 innings pitched. Okay. That's a pretty good deal. I think a 2 or 3 year deal is pretty fair for what Justin Verlander is at this point. This will probably take him through his age 41, maybe 42 season. There's the Kershaw deal, $15 million salary with a $5 million signing bonus, essentially $20 million. Rangers clip there anyway. Let's see. Looks like John Paul Morosi is talking a lot about the St. Louis Cardinals today, about them being very active in the shortstop market. They said previously that they're very happy at shortstop with Tommy Edman. Apparently not so much. It sounds like this might be the one year we see them go out there and make a big addition in free agency. And maybe they could spin off Tommy Edman for some pitching, something like that. They also have some outfielders out there. Yep, Verlander has said he wants to pitch until 45, but that's not necessarily up to the pitcher. That's usually up to your injuries and whether or not a team ends up signing him. Welcome in, Mark. Appreciate you joining us. Got about 25 of you guys in here right now. Thank you guys for subscribing and liking the video. Really appreciate all the help. 10 years, 400. That's kind of my prediction for Judge. Still no news on that front yet. Maybe we'll get a contract from him, hopefully, by the end of the day, and that will kind of clear the logjam. Remember, after the Jacob deGrom signing, there was kind of a lull after that, as teams kind of got their bearings again as far as what the market looks like after Jacob deGrom signing. You know, the years, the money, all those types of things. And I think we now are going to have a small period of adjustment while we adjust to the Justin Verlander news. I think everybody expected it to be around this market, so I'm not expecting a lengthy pause in signings or trades. And we could see this market continue to pick up quite quickly here. I mean, it's just after noon Central Time anyway. It's just after 10 a.m. at the winter meetings in San Diego. It's still early in the morning. Things are going to be happening today. We should see some trade talk happen. Hopefully we get some big trades this winter meetings, some out-of-nowhere trades. We certainly will get some if Aaron Judge leaves the New York Yankees, because the Yankees are going to have to respond somehow, whether that be bringing in one of the top shortstops and then they make Volpe available, etc. Welcome in, Courtney. Royals trade. I don't see it yet. Who are the Royals trading for, Courtney? I don't even think that that's the most insane money I could theoretically see Judge getting as well. By the way, just to kind of comment on what you're saying there, Jose. My prediction is 10 years at 400. That's 40 million over 10 years. Now say the market for Judge gets up to 42, 43, 45 million dollars over that length of a contract. The Giants absolutely could afford that type of a deal. They only have $120 million committed in payroll right now. Say they add Aaron Judge at $45 million. That's $165 million. They're well beneath the luxury tax. They could still go out there and add a starting pitcher, add a shortstop, add a corner outfielder, add a first baseman. They could do a number of different things out there, even after the Aaron Judge signing. So, just saying 10 years, 400, it does sound crazy. It would be the biggest ever commitment to a position player, but it could even get higher than that. I still think it'll be right around 10 at 400, though. They're just trying to run it up on the Cubs and Cards. Has there been any news on catchers? Not really. Same thing we've talked about last night anyway. Sean Murphy trade was supposedly close with the Atlanta Braves. Mark Feinsand basically retracting that statement, saying Braves are not necessarily close after speaking with Alex Anthopoulos that they were not negotiating actively for Sean Murphy. But he is expected to be dealt at least some point during the winter meetings. But as far as the catchers on the free agent market, Wilson Contreras is the top hitter out there. Christian Vasquez is another great catcher on the market. We'll see where they end up going. One name you will not see being traded is Salvador Perez from the Royals. I think he's going to end up as a career Royal, will retire as a Kansas City Royal, and that's just how it's going to be. I know there were some rumors about him going to the White Sox. That's not happening. But really appreciate you guys joining us here today. As I told you guys, every single time we see a big news story break, we will immediately put out a short little 15-second video. You can check out that here on YouTube. That way you guys can get the quick, abridged version of what's happening. And then you're going to get a live video right afterwards so you guys can join our community, talk about the deal, go a little bit more in depth as far as what it means for the market, what it means for these teams. As far as Houston Astros, they had already basically moved on from Justin Verlander for the Mets. They continue to still need some starting pitching. I wonder if they turn their attention right now to Brendan Nimmo. His market is probably going to take past the winter meetings. And so I wonder if they're going to try to lock him up quickly, try to overshoot the moon on all these other teams, because he does have significant interest from the Giants, the Blue Jays, the Mariners, the Cubs, pretty much anybody in need of a center fielder or a right or left fielder. Brendan Nimmo could be your guy this year. And as far as a contract, we're probably looking in the neighborhood of 4 years, $80 million, or 5 years, $100 million for Brendan Nimmo. If you're not really crazy about Brendan Nimmo and you want similar production for a younger player, Brendan Nimmo's 32, Brian Reynolds is 27. Maybe you go the trade route and talk to the Pirates about going for him. 45, by looking at this year's contracts, Ohtani will be the first to 50. I thought he was going to be at 50 before the season even began. If we're talking about crazy contracts right now, DeGrom getting 37, Verlander getting 43, Matt Scherzer last offseason getting 43 plus. We're still talking about Rodon getting 30 plus, Aaron Judge getting in the neighborhood of 40. Very easily, Ohtani could top 50 million. Not just be at 50 million, but be 51, 52, $55 million. Because again, he's two players in one. He's a middle-of-the-order bat, slugger. Not necessarily the greatest slugger like an Aaron Judge, but he is fantastic as an all-star at the plate, and then is also an ace on the mound when he does go out there for you. Injuries are always going to be a concern for him as well, though, because he does put so much effort into everything he does. But I'm expecting at least a $50 million contract annually for Shohei Ohtani next offseason. That's, again, why we're seeing the Dodgers be a little bit hesitant as far as handing out some big money deals. No, the Cardinals in the market for a shortstop are just trying to rent it or ratchet up for the Cubs. I think the St. Louis Cardinals are actually legitimately interested in adding a shortstop. For years, they basically not made any major free agent additions. They've basically done it religiously anyway. They haven't spent at the top of the market. That's not the way the Cardinals seem to do things. But John Paul Morosi, I kind of agree with him that there's a lot of momentum building towards that. They've got some flexibility now as far as payroll. They've got 6 starters on the roster, even though they say they want to add more. They have Tommy Edman at short. They have some good outfielders. I think they could parlay some of those pieces and trade up for some better possibilities out there. Welcome in, Gage. Appreciate you for joining us. Winter meetings, trade market, Justin Verlander, move, Dodgers or Giants. Well, Justin Verlander is going to the Mets, but if you're asking, do the Giants or Dodgers ultimately trade for somebody? I think the Dodgers could be in the market for a Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Willie Adames from the Brewers. They could go out there and be interested in Pablo Lopez from the Marlins. They were in on his market last year. Dodgers way too quiet. They're going to come out of nowhere and trade for Ohtani. Absolutely not going to happen. I think the Mets moving wakes the Yankees up. I don't think that happens either. So as far as the Dodgers, they're trying to keep their powder dry for Shohei Ohtani next year. The reason why they're not going to trade for him this year is just flat because the Angels are not trading him. I mean, they're trying to build around him. They're trying to sell the team as well. Why would you trade your number one asset? Sure, Mike Trout is there, but Shohei Ohtani right now is their best asset, even though he has 1 year left on his deal. They're trying to build around him. They're bringing in some winning players with Gio Urshela, Hunter Renfroe. They brought in a good starting pitcher in Tyler Anderson, depending on how good you think he actually is, with only 1 great year under his belt. But they're trying to make some improvements around that roster. They've done this before. They continue to try to forge ahead and push for the playoffs and fail year after year after year. Now, right or wrong, whether or not you agree the Angels should be doing this or not, the fact remains is they will not be trading Shohei Ohtani no matter what you try to give him up. For instance, if you're the Dodgers and you're willing to give him your 1, 2, 3, 4 prospects and give him Gavin Lux, I still think they say no. And with a straight face, I might add. And That's a big trade package if that were to happen. I mean, that's probably way more value than Shohei Ohtani has with 1 year left on his deal. But even that is not going to be enough to pry Shohei Ohtani away. Why? Because flatly, the Angels are not trading him. It's not that they, don't value that package that you'd be sending him back. Not that they wouldn't want that package back. They would rather have the asset on their team because it keeps that value of that organization high as they try to sell that team. As for the Mets waking up the Yankees are in a completely different situation. I mean, the Yankees for years have been, considered the face of baseball, etc., yet they haven't won a championship in quite a few years now. They're the organization that's expected to compete for championships, not for division crowns, not for the back pages of the page or paper anymore. The days of George Steinbrenner running things there as well are gone. And so I think the Yankees are always going to be in on Aaron Judge. They're going to try to add around him as well. I don't think that really wakes them up in any way. I think that just, if anything, it just shows that Aaron Judge is now possibly the next free agent off the board to either the Giants or the Yankees. I don't think it manifests itself in any way for the Yankees as far as stressing them out that now that the Mets have countered the loss of DeGrom by bringing in Verlander, now the Yankees have to do something. Porcello announced retirement. Okay. He has dealt with injury issues. I did not see he announced retirement, though. There's the Kershaw deal. Just before the winter meetings began, the New York Mets were really trying to push for Jameson Taillon of the New York Yankees. They basically put a full court press onto him, but it sounds like they've cooled their pursuit of Taillon. It sounds like the market's a little bit too high for where the Mets want to go with him. The Phillies, the Phillies, Cubs, and Orioles are other teams that have been mentioned for him as well. The Red Sox were at one point, and we'll see where he ends up going. But there are other teams that could use a Jameson Taillon as a number 3 in their rotation. Just saw another headline. Bear with me for just a moment. Yep, there's the Porcello announcement, announcing his retirement anyway. Sad to see it happen. Injuries derailing his career really ruined things. Do you think Judge signs at the winter meetings? Absolutely. Yep, there it is. In case you guys are wondering what site we're using, this is MLBTradeRumors.com. Pretty great site as far as keeping up with a lot of the news. In case you guys can't watch a video for whatever reason, you're in a library or whatever and you can't watch it, go ahead and check out this site, keep you up to date. And then BaseballTradeValues.com. If you guys are curious about what your player is worth on the trade market, say like Luis Ariz from Minnesota Twins, what type of a piece could you get back? If you want to look at his trade value on there and kind of play around with the trade machine, just see what happens. Think of it like the NBA trade machine of ESPN, except instead of just having contracts, trading back and forth and seeing if the contracts match, baseball, of course, doesn't deal with the salary cap. Now you can actually deal with it more on, instead of like a Madden type trade or a 2K trade or a MLB show type trade, you can see similar trade values and just see, generally what a player is worth on the market. But appreciate you guys joining us. In case you guys missed it off the top, Jacob DeGrom signed with the Texas Rangers on Friday, 5 years, $185 million, with an option for a 6th year to bring the contract to $222 million total if that contract is vested and picked up. And then the Mets, of course, turn around and at the first day of the winter meetings signed Justin Verlander to a 2-year, $86 million deal, countering the DeGrom loss. So good addition here for the Mets. They rebound quickly anyway from the loss of DeGrom. Let us know in the comments section what you think of the signing for the Mets. Is this enough for that starting staff? I mean, they still have a couple of rotation spots open right now with Bassett and Walker out there as free agents. Of course, they could put Peterson in that starting rotation, but I think they want to use him more as a fill-in option when injuries happen, that kind of a thing. Any news on the Red Sox? Well, we've seen them add a couple of different pieces to that bullpen. Chris Martin, yes, the 2-year, $17.5 million contract. For a great reliever, when healthy, a great strikeout rate, low walk rate, but again has issues with his back from time to time. So you're going to be expected to miss him probably for at least a month or two during the season, so take that contract with a grain of salt. Joely Rodriguez was brought over from the Mets as well. The other news from the Red Sox is that they're no longer a free agent destination. Sorry, Red Sox fans, it's just not happening for you anymore. Zach Eflin had the exact same contract on the table from the Boston Red Sox as the Tampa Bay Rays. He chose to go to Tampa. The Red Sox were in there at the same contract level again for Jose Abreu, end up losing him to the Houston Astros because he wants to win. That tells you all you need to know about where the Red Sox are likely to finish unless something drastic changes and they're able to bring back Xander Bogaerts, which, by the way, will not be happening. The Red Sox are going to probably be finishing in the fourth or fifth spot in the AL East next year. They're going to have to rebound quickly. They're going to have to get some have to get some injury-plagued guys from last year to pitch for them this year. Chris Sale, one of the best pitchers in the world when healthy, but again, the issues for him has been his health. Was coming back from injury and then tore down an air conditioner unit out of a ceiling, and was injured after that and didn't finish the rest of the year for the Red Sox. Red Sox are going to have to get healthy first and then show that they can win in a very tough division with the Blue Jays, the Rays, and the Orioles right now at the top. The Yankees could still be at the top, but if they lose Aaron Judge, I think the Yankees and Red Sox could both finish as the 4 and 5 seeds, or finish in the 4 and 5 spots in the AL East. I got a feeling that you'll be live many times. I hope so too. Got to keep my voice hydrated. That's true as well. Probably going to call it here in just a moment here. Just if you guys have any more questions, feel free to send them to us. Hit that subscribe button. We will try to be live very often for you guys today. Probably keep this live to around 45 minutes. That way we can be ready for the next big story as it happens. Which shortstops do you think signed today? I'm not sure if any of them signed today, but I think there's a possibility of Trey Turner getting done later on this evening. I'm not expecting it here within the next few hours. I'm more leaning towards the Aaron Judge signing happening later on this afternoon if I had to pick one. Carlos Rodon, because the starting pitcher market is flying right now, we could see that happen. But Turner, I think, is the top shortstop on the market that could sign. There seems to be some activity going on around Carlos Correa as well. There's some activity around Bogaerts possibly going to the Diamondbacks. I see the connection there with Mike Hazen, former connection with the Red Sox, and Xander Bogaerts, but ultimately I just think they're there to drive up the price. When are the Angels going to trade Trout? I just don't think they're going to. I think they're going to have him retire as an Angel. I thought they should have traded him years ago at this point, recoup the value, rebuild their organization, and the Angels just kind of keep burying their head in the sand and not accepting reality that they're not a good team. No matter how much money they try to throw at that team, it's just not working out, and they just need to solve it. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate that. Thank you for the 1,000 subscribers to every one of you who have subscribed. Thank you very much. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. What you waiting for? But we'll be sticking with you guys here for another couple of minutes anyway. Got 30 of you guys right now with us, so make sure you hit that like button. We'll be live for you guys multiple times throughout the day whenever a big signing happens, so be ready. And keep your notifications on. Follow us on Twitter at UpsideSN. YouTube does limit you to, I believe, 3 notifications a day, something like that. I know whenever my friends tell me, hey, I don't get notifications whenever you go live or whenever you post a video. And I was like, well, do you get notifications from other videos? Like 1 or 2 a day is what they would tell me. And so I told them, follow me on Twitter. And whenever I do go live, whenever I do post a video, I'll post it there as well. That way you guys stay up to date on everything that's happening. But if you guys want to hit that subscribe button, we would really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for the like there. Appreciate that. Jose, I see Correa needs to be the first one to fall because he has been looking for a big contract for a while now. I think he's probably waiting for the Aaron Judge signing to go. I think he's probably one of the shortstops outside of Dansby Swanson that could take the longest. Just because we saw last year Carlos Correa was basically jettisoned from the Houston Astros. They didn't really want him back. They had his heir apparent in Jeremy Pena, and lo and behold, a great heir apparent. I mean, he won the ALCS MVP, the World Series MVP. He was fantastic, and he's looking to make a statement to the Houston Astros saying, hey, look at me now kind of a thing. After having a tough go through free agency last time around, he's looking for a big splash. He's looking to make some type of a statement with wherever he signs. So I think he's going to wait until after the Aaron Judge signing. And if Judge goes to a team like the Giants, then I think it will happen for the New York Yankees. So kind of keep your eyes peeled there. You think Rodon will go to the Mets? Well, they're not the team that's hardest in on Rodon right now. The New York Yankees are supposedly the team from New York in the most interest for Carlos Rodon. The Rangers are right there on their heels as well. The Giants are said to have significant interest. The Twins as well, but they're waiting for the Carlos Correa market. So I think Judge is holding up not just the outfield market, but he could be holding up other teams' decisions as to what to do on the shortstop market as well. So we'll see how things go. Mizuki or Dodgers or Giants or Orioles? I really don't have a good read on that one. It's very tough to tell with international free agents. Like for instance, Kodai Senga. He's a great free agent, has 8 to 9 teams with legitimate interest in him. About half the league has at least checked in on his availability and what it might take to bring him in. But about 8 or 9 teams are serious about bringing him in. I thought originally at the outset of free agency we might see Senga sign for around 5 years, $75 million, etc. But because he's a true free agent, even though he's 31 years old, we're seeing numbers get all the way up into $20+ million annually for him. Last I heard anyway, the market was around 3 years at 72. We'll see if that's ultimately what he signs for, if it's a little less, if it's a little bit more. But it certainly sounds like the market is a lot hotter than 5 years at 15 average annual value. But yes, we certainly will be back right after the next news breaks. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Just about to log off here in just a moment, but if you haven't hit that like button already, please do so. Hit that subscribe. You can check out the video that I put out, just a short little 15-second video. Drop a like on that one as well. Share it with your friends. Tell them to join us here at the Upside, but really appreciate all the new subscribers we've gained. But we will be back here shortly. Thank you guys again for joining us here at the Upside. And it's only just after 10 o'clock on the West Coast where the winter meetings are. We should have a very active winter meeting. So join us here at the Upside. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll keep you guys up to date on all the latest. Gage, I just saw your question there. Do you think there's any surprise teams that will spend a lot this offseason? I'm not sure if it's too much of a surprise, but we've already seen the Rangers spend significantly. I think it would be a surprise to teams or to fans outside of Texas that they might go out there for another $30+ million this offseason. That's the kind of budget they still have to add pieces this offseason. I mean, they're going to spend money even after Jacob deGrom. We were told at the beginning of the season this past year that after the signings of Correa, or after the signings of Seager and Simeon and Gray, that they still had between $60 to $75 million in payroll that they were going to add to this coming year's team anyway. They added 37-ish anyway with deGrom. Of course, they bring back Perez. They cut Cole Calhoun to save a little bit of money. They still have about $30 million to spend, and they're going to spend it. Carlos Rodon could be that piece to put their rotation over the top, to make it a top 5 rotation in the entire sport, and then try to piecemeal the rest of it together via trades, whether they go for a left fielder or a closer. Another team that could be out there that could be a big spender, the Chicago Cubs. I know they haven't been big spenders over the past few years, but they need to start spending some money. They have that big complex that they've built in Chicago. They need to invest in it. Of course, they've diverted a lot of their attention, at least the ownership group has, to their international investments. And so that's kind of been their bugaboo about whether or not they would really invest in that club. But finally, it seems like the time the Cubs really could go out there for a shortstop. As far as an off-the-radar team, like a completely out-of-nowhere team, I don't know if we're going to have that this year. There's a lot of reporting out there that every team is pretty well covered. I don't think anybody out there is, going to be completely surprised. Thank you for subscribing, Tom. Appreciate you for coming back. Welcome in, Chris. But any out-of-nowhere trade predictions? I would say, even though the Brewers deny it, I think we could see Adames or Woodruff traded. I don't think Burns will get traded because he is their premium asset. I think they want to negotiate a long-term deal there. But welcome back, Falcon. Judge is overrated. The guy disappears in the postseason. History has shown big contracts never work out. Again, take that with a grain of salt. Sometimes big contracts do. Sometimes they don't. Long 10-year term contracts anyway. About 60 to 65% of those contracts ultimately don't work out. But the majority of them, the first few years for sure, look really great. The Mets apparently are showing interest in Andrew Benintendi. That's the latest right now that they're showing on MLB Network. Joel Sherman reporting that right now to Chris Russo on High Heat. So again, market is picking up, so make sure you join us here at the Upside. Again, we'll be live as soon as we see any more transactions happen. Keep your notifications on. We'll post some videos whenever we see some of these big rumors happen. But thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys a little bit later this afternoon.